Good morning. Welcome to Every Piece's graduated Bob class. I do have our model here. Her name is Erin. I typically do cut her hair, and actually, can you guys try to figure out what kind of haircut this is that I've given her before? Yeah, you can see it, right? There's the details that you can already see. And also, do you see, although her hair, does kind of fray all over, she does have kind of wavy hair, if you guys notice this, right? But as you guys can see, there is that natural bevel that happens from gravity. Okay, so yes, this is the koi bob, as you guys can see. Okay, so here we come into play. Let's analyze the 5 foundations of our haircut here. Okay, so if you guys want to stand up and really feel her hair, why would I choose this type of hair? Please go ahead. So let's start off right off the bat. For our length on this haircut, we are looking at above the shoulder, right? When we talk about bobs, what are bobs? Anything that's above the shoulder with a weight line, right? Because what if it's above the shoulder and it's like this? That's a pixie. So anything that's above the shoulder with a weight line is what we consider a bob. Okay? So for the length, it is above shoulder, right? So if a client sits down and they say, yeah, I would like to cut my hair above shoulder, that instinctively tells you, right? It's either going to be a bob or we're going to be a pixie, right? So our next is our density. When you guys do think about bobs, what comes into mind? For me, the word building, right? We're always building weight. A lot of people talk about this, building weight, right? And when it comes to building weight, what type of density are we going to need for this haircut? Medium thick. I mean, I think you guys are kind of noticing this, right? A lot of the trends on these haircuts, when we need to shape hair, is because we need to move a lot of hair, right? So when we need to move a lot of hair, it just has to have a lot of hair, kind of, at least, right? So we are gonna go for our density from medium to thick, okay? And for the strand, are we particular with the type of strand we're working with in this case? No, very good, okay? No discretion. Open, so I'm gonna just write open, okay? And for our wave pattern, what do you guys think is important for this?
I mean, typically more straight, like not like curly, but just more so on like the like less wavy straight side.
Okay, I want to open your guys' mind for this. When we're building something, okay, I know you guys, it's funny that you guys think that it's straight hair, but when we're building something, what do you think builds even more than straight hair? Curly hair. So actually, this should be open for, again, anything that is not stick straight to curly. You definitely want to utilize this haircut on curly hair as well. When you think about curly shapes, that's how much you have to build, right? If you do a broomstick effect on curly hair, what's going to happen? It's going to really broom itself up, right? So if you can create this graduated shape on curly hair, how beautiful of a shape can you create? Make sense? So please don't stray away or shy away from trying to utilize this cut on curly hair. You can use it on almost any hair. And again, I hope you guys notice this trend. Stick straight hair, I think, is the hardest hair to work on to make it look good because there's not much movement, right? Okay, so not stick straight. And again, what is the rule on that? It's not like if someone walks in with stick straight hair that you can deny them the haircut. But you know, as we answered this, they must style their hair often, right? And just the easy telltale sign. A lot of times when people are like that with stick straight hair and they have the ability and they want to style their hair, when they come in the salon, their hair is gonna be styled because they wanted you to see that. Okay? So someone's coming in your chair and who has stick straight hair, doesn't really style too much, this is not the haircut for them. Does that make sense? Okay. So last is the growth. Okay. Is there any restrictions on how the hair should grow or anything on the hairline that would affect this haircut? The nape. Nice. I like that. This haircut, I would say, this is, Tasia hit it right on the money. It is really not that you can it restricts your haircut, but you do want to look at the hairline in general, right? Because how you're going to move around this, right? Right here, if we think about a bob, right? We think again about a weight line, right? So really, if you have to pay attention to how much hair they do have on the front and how much, this is the term today we're going to be using, is called density jump. That is the nape corner. At that corner, if you make a mistake, that's your density jump right there, right? We know if we travel around the head, what's going to happen? It's going to follow the hairline, and your density is just going to jump up right at that, just like how this hairline is. Okay? So paying attention to this hairline, because some people's, you can kind of see Aaron has baby hairs that go wide. Some people's nape goes really wide, right? So you do want to pay attention, especially to this nape corner. This plays a big role in how we're going to draw and think about our haircut. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay. Growth, just pay attention to the hairline, right? So nape, corner, density jump. Okay? So these are the 5 foundations of our haircut. As you guys can see, just like I said, Erin doesn't really style her hair too much, right? So the koi bob does work, and I will say this. The reason why I created the koi bob is Erin is kind of the person that maybe the graduated bob, it's going to be beautiful on her if she styles it. But if you can kind of tell, her wave pattern kind of goes left, right, all over. So that's what I talked about yesterday, the koi bob. Sometimes you get your graduation and you get your bob and you blow dry and it's really nice. But even that, sometimes the hair pattern will kick out and kick back at you. So she kind of has that hair type. And that's all you have to hand to your client, that it is kind of dependent on styling. But really, the shape is the shape, and even if the hair kicks out, it's fine. You've created art. Okay? So if Tony can go ahead, can we wash? And we'll get back to it. Before we really get into it, the tool that I'm going to be showing you guys and getting you guys familiar with is going to be the razor. Okay? So obviously you guys are familiar with razor. We talked about it, but I just want to get over some of these myths. Okay? So Tasia did bring up using a straight razor. And I know online it might look cool and people might be whatever about it. But the truth is, never mind the straight razor. Get the feather razor with the safety guard on it. The biggest reason I'll tell you guys this is, what if you had to trim off 1/2 of an inch, right? What if you cut the hair and the client goes, I want it a little bit shorter? How would you even go about that with a straight razor? The truth is, you can't. Okay? So the guarded razor enables you to be more free in how close you can get or how small or minuscule of lengths that you can cut. Okay? Now, another myth that comes about with the razor is that it shreds hair. Okay? The reason why, right? Let's talk about how the razor works. The razor is really sharp. So once it touches the hair, if you guys are familiar, once you have a nice new razor on it, and once you touch the hair, it literally just cuts it on contact. Okay? I would suggest you guys to only cut razor on wet hair. The reason why on wet hair is because hair is 40% more elastic when wet, and hair is softer when it is wet, right? We went over that in playing with scissors, that dry cutting scissors are like almost double the thickness, right? Way thicker. The reason why is because dry hair is harder, stronger. Okay? So back to that. The reason why the myth of razors shred hair is because the razor itself is too dull, right? It is not sharp enough. Why is it interchangeable? Because it should be changed once it is too dull. Okay? So, right, what happens if the razor is dull is once we pull on the hair, it will snag the hair and it'll pull the hair and it'll snap the hair. So what's happening with the cuticle at that point? It's just shredding up the cuticle. And that's why you get that myth, okay? I know at some point in time through your career, someone might sit in your chair and say, don't touch my hair with the razor, right? So you can just educate them on this. Now, how do we combat that as stylists as well? Again, we change the razor. And let me just give you a fact because you guys work here, obviously. So the razor, I provide the razor blades for you guys. So there's no excuse. Okay. But it does come down to about $1 a razor. Is that a big deal? Your haircut? No, it's not a big deal. So change it. And the truth is sometimes when the hair's so coarse, you might need 2 razors a haircut. But do not proceed with the razor once you feel that pull, right? Then you're going to shred that hair and clients are going to complain about your haircut. And that haircut's not going to last long because the ends and the cuticles are shredded. Okay? So that with the razor, what we're going to do is cut the shape with the razor. Okay? So the graduated bob really does depend a lot on tension. This is a high tension haircut. Okay? And I want to bring up a little fact, a little bit of what tension does to the hair. Okay? Obviously, tension, when you pull it, you're creating a very straight line. And when you release it, it expands. And what does it follow? It follows the shape of the skull, right? So when it comes to tension, right, we think we're pulling this line and making it straight and cutting it really straight. But as we release it, what is it following in? The skull that makes it round, right? So in actuality, when we're cutting with high tension, we're using the skull shape to create and shape the haircut. Does that make sense? Got it? So with that being said, right, let's get right into it. When we come into it, our sectioning, here's a live model here. And again, what did I say when we razor? We do want the hair wet. That's why I kept her in the wrap. Okay. And that's why also, if you guys have heard this, when we're using cutting solutions or leave-in conditioners that condition and soften the hair, that elevates your razor cut. Why? Because it gives longevity to the razor because the hair is soft and smooth and easy to cut through. So, yeah, it makes the razor go further. Okay. So again, when I say that the haircut is the in front of it, it is already a, pre-thought up haircut. I think you guys kind of know how crazy I am. I make up haircuts, right? Which way do you part your hair? This way? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So when we start off our haircut, okay, everybody knows as this drawing, I think this might be the weirdest drawing, and please bear with me. This is the best. I'm going to try to illustrate the movement of traveling around with your graduated bob. Okay, so your first section is going to be in the nape. So we are going to be starting off with an A section. Okay, your first guide will be coming on center, but this is the occipital point right here, right? This is what we consider the nape, the parietal, and the crown. And just for our sectioning purposes, right? Okay, so underneath the occipital, we're gonna start with our mohawk here. And what I would wanna tell you guys is there is a lot of pivoting that happens, okay? Again, pivoting. So when we come around from the nape, okay, I do suggest you guys to go on the left side first, or your knuckle down side first. Okay. The reason why we want to start with our knuckle is because that is always going to be longer. Does that make sense? Okay. So when we're moving through the haircut, we start pivoting on this occipital, right? And what are we going to reach? Our nape corner, our density jump. Okay. So first you want to pivot around the occipital until you reach that nape corner. So what does that really give you? That gives you this shape right here, which is the base of the triangle which you're traveling. So as you can see here in the nape, I wrote it out. This is the base of the triangle, not the tip of the triangle. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? Okay, you guys are reading it? Okay. So as we pivot over, what's going to start to happen, right? Why is it that we're going to start pivoting here? What happens here if we start to continue? We're going to start to eat into the length, right? So the next move, and I drew it here because it's kind of hard to see, is let's just say the nape corners are right here on the head on the top. Okay? From this point, you want to start isolating your section and bringing your next section to your previous section at that nape corner. So the next technical pivot that you make is going to be on that nape corner. Does that make sense? Kind of. Angie's a little lost. Okay? So here is my illustration for this. Okay? So this is our cutting panel and this is our finger angle. Okay? So as we come in, right, we're going to cut. We're going to pivot, pivot, pivot until, right? So here's our occipital. We're going to pivot, 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 pivot until this point, right? And you see the angle I have? This is the graduation. It is perfect for this graduation, right? So what's going to happen? If we keep going, what's going to happen? We're going to eat into the length, right? So what we need to do, and when I say pivot, it means we're going to pivot on this now. Does that make sense? Got it, Tasia? Angie? Kind of getting it? Okay, so one more time. Start with our guide, right? What is the first pivot? Where just say the point of the pivot. Where are we pivoting off of first? Huh? No. Yes. Occipital. Okay? So again, we're pivoting off the occipital. And then the second point of pivot is, you said it earlier, nape corner. Okay? So be specific with it. Because I could be pivoting off the nape, right? The nape is anywhere. But the nape corner, the density jump, is where we're going to start to pivot. Does that make sense? Okay. So what I'm going to tell you guys, and I want you guys to understand this, when people draw this, maybe you guys will figure it out. When they make the drawing, do you start to see that? Have you ever seen a drawing, someone else's drawing on the graduated Bob? It looks like a 3D map like this, right? Now do you guys start to understand what that means, right? Because when I look at those drawings, I used to get really confused too. But now I get it because I'm kind of explaining it the same way. But remember, just remember those two pivot points. That is the key to making the graduation travel around the head evenly while keeping the weight line strong. Does that make sense? Okay? So you'll see it today. Any questions so far? Okay, so once we finish this back, we've pivoted around. We kind of do cut around the parietal ridge. It's up to you guys whether you want to section off this crown or not. I would say that we're not really point-to-point cutting in this haircut. We're not utilizing the point-to-point method because we are just shaping. Because your final move on the crown, as you can see, we're going to travel around, right? We're going to cut all of this corner to our desired shape, right? We're going to make it graduate up, build up the weight, and kind of cut it round, right? So we're going to travel around here and here because there's a lot of pivoting that happens here, right? There's a lot of pivoting that happens around here. So this is a triangle tip here. So we isolate and bring it all back. Make sense? Um, I did want to open this up for Tony. if he has anything to say on this.
When you get to the top of the crown, whichever way your finger angle is going here or your elevation is either going to take weight away or you're going to continue to build it. So I could keep taking my finger angle in this direction. And if I did that, I would have a really heavy weight line on my graduated bob. The way this is being done softens all that and rounds all the top. So that's kind of like creative discretion there. Cool?
Yes. Okay. And you guys learned something yesterday from us, right? What else could we do on this final crown piece?
Oh, do it last, like dry it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Right? So this is where it comes into play. Once you guys have figured out your hands and really know the foundation, now it's time to play. So, right? And the reason why I'll tell you guys this, I think will be a game changer for you guys to understand, is that we're using razor today. The razor, the reason why I'm putting this as a razor cutting, right, is because we want to put emphasis on your guide hand. We're putting emphasis on your travel around the head and the control that you have in your guide hand. Yes, your razor, I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to show you guys how to cut with razor, but because it is soft, it gives you more creative freedom to kind of fudge, to be honest. This is a very technical haircut, and when you get used to it and you're comfortable with it, then you can cut it blunt. Because again, if we cut it blunt today, every fudge you make will show. And this is why a lot of people put such a heavy emphasis on this haircut. I've been asked to do this haircut as interviews for a salon. Or actually the reverse. I brought it in like, hey, you want to hire me? This is my haircut. Okay? So here we are, left and right. Okay, first off, I want to talk to you guys about the razor. This is going to be the toe. This is going to be the heel. I want you to pay attention to this as I'm cutting. Because the blade is this wide, okay? And a lot of hair cutters with razor only utilize like this much of the blade. Does that make sense? Okay. So, first when we get in, I'm going to create my guide. Okay, so I'm going to make this at least a pretty transparent section, right? But again, why is it that I'm going to go left and I'm getting my knuckle into the head before? The reason why is because this is longer, okay? If I cut the other way and I come in this way and I cut, right? What's going to happen if it's short? I can't match it up because my knuckles are in the way here to cut this, right? How close can I get with my fingers versus how close can I get with my knuckle? Does that make sense? So when you're starting off, I really would highly suggest you do the first pivot left and then pivot right. Okay? So, I'm going to come in. Oh, Aaron, you're okay with me cutting it short, yeah? Like not super short, yeah? Okay, thanks. Totally forgot. Welcome to my salon. Nah, Aaron's been with me for years. Yeah, you guys can really see that koi bob right there. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna come in, and again, we're using our comb to figure out our angle. Okay, so if I flatten the comb, use the teeth, that is the angle in which I want. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of always. This is where I want you guys to really pay attention. That's what I mean, right? When I comb and I scoop the comb, it's telling me where should my angle and my elevation be. Does that make sense? Okay. So every time I'm kind of like laying the comb flat and I use that back, and do you see? I'm on it. Boom. Okay. So I'm going to make my first cut. And I want you guys to really see this. As I'm coming in, I line up my razor and I line up the heel of it, and I come in, right? I don't want you guys to shred the hair, because what do you think that does when we only go from the top? We're actually layering it in, but we're trying to create a line coming down. So this type of cutting where it's just flat, it kind of almost to me defeats the purpose of a razor, because you're not creating enough texture. And I taught you guys when we do point cutting, it's hills and valleys. We're trying to make the texture. Does that make sense? Okay? So when we come in, this is when I say, is my finger angle good? Yes. Is my elevation good? Yes. Checked. Now, always, as you guys watch me cut, I'm always going to stay within my knuckles just because I am not gifted with, no hole. I have a huge hole and I can see everyone through my, my finger gap. Okay. So let's just start cutting. Okay. I'm going to make my rough cut first. I want you guys to watch. Okay. Okay. I'm going to come heel and you see I travel down toe. Okay. Again, heel, toe. Okay. And this move that I'm referring to when I come down with the comb, it's called strumming, like playing the guitar, right? I'm going to keep my hand isolated, keep it there, just so I can move down that slice or panel of hair, and then heel toe. Okay, so here it is. I think I really like that length. So let's go ahead. So I'm gonna pivot. So you see it start to pivot. So remember what I said earlier? Do you see how shallow her nape is? Her nape, if I had to lift this up, her nape is not that wide. You see? And if anything, you see how round it is? So I have to create that corner. I have to know when to put the brakes on traveling around, and I have to stop. Does that make sense? So that's what it means on this haircut for the growth, right? For the pillars of the haircut or something like that. I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, right? Okay. So here, again, when you pivot and when you take your slice, that's when you have to condition yourself to cut with your slice. Does that make sense? So what I mean is, if I slice like this, am I going to try to bring it here and manipulate it so that I can be only vertical? No. I have it slightly diagonal so that it reminds me that I want it straight out. If it helps you guys to make the sections to keep it clean, you can clip away. When you get faster, you won't need to, right? It does help if the hair is moist enough, okay? So here it is. I see my guide and I'm just gonna go in with my heel toe. You need that tension. That's what I'm saying. Do not cut in that finger gap or else you're gonna lose the tension. And if you lose the tension, what's gonna happen? The hair is just gonna get longer. The line is gonna get wonky, okay? So here we are. This is my first left, right? And I'm going to stop right there. Okay. That was actually only like, what, 2 sections? Because really, here, let me section this off and show you how shallow her nape is, right? Remember my mom yesterday? We'd probably take 5 sections or even 7 because her nape was super wide, right? Okay, so I'm down, same thing, right? Same, right? We're going to use the comb. We're going to come in, look, am I straight with the head? Am I flat on the head? Where are the teeth pointing? That is the angle I'm choosing. Again, be mindful. If every once in a while, look over your section and see if you are pulling it out 90 degrees from the head. Okay, so come in. That's my guide right there. Now, how would I do this on the reverse? You guys can do, right? This one we can do toe to heel. Okay? If you guys are more comfortable, you can go from heel to toe. But because I'm coming down, I'm going to go toe. And I want you to see, I'm actually sliding the razor in, juk, 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 like that. Does that make sense? Is that a soft line? Is there enough texture? All in one shot. Okay. How am I going to cross check? I cut this way, right? Cross check is this way. So let's check the line. Let's check the travel. And voila, I look like I actually know what I'm doing, huh? Oh boy. Okay, so here we are. Now let's do the next pivot. Angie, what is the next pivot point? Good, nape corner, right? Yes, nape corner. Again, what did I mention when we razor? Make sure that the hair is evenly moist. Right? So the razor just comes right through. Right? I'm going to take my partings. As you see, when I take my partings, My partings are still transparent, right? About 50% transparency. That's just, you might get carried away because the razor feels so good that you might just take big sections, but really keep yourself down, okay? So here, when I'm starting to pivot, what does that mean? If I had to visually show you, it just means that, look, I'm pivoting around, okay? The reason why is if I isolate my length here, I don't lose length, right? But if I just keep myself here and keep cutting at that same angle, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna lose my graduation in the front, right? If you've never seen this, sometimes if there's nice graduation in the back and there's zero graduation in the front, that's because this person has isolated this hand and stayed there and just cut everything in the back. But unless we pivot this way, we won't get graduation in the front. Does that make sense? Not so much in the front. I like that question. Go ahead, Ange. Don't use the comb like this. I don't want you to get into this back. I saw you using it yesterday, but what you mean is this. Okay? Anytime you're trying to show a head shape or think about the head shape, you got to use the teeth of the comb, because what does that tell you? Yes, but what angle? This is 90 degrees. The comb is straight, the teeth are 90. We're using this to get our 90. If someone says 45, we know 90 is here, right? 45 is here. Or what is 90 plus 135 is here. Does that make sense? So we always use this as reference. So here, show me one more time what you mean. Okay, so
like this. And then it goes this.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Here, you're right, Angie. When we're doing the back, we are definitely using the skull, right? Because this is nice and round. But the front, what kind of shape is here in this parietal ridge here? It's kind of flat. It's flat and it's a square. So we can't necessarily follow that. So what am I going to use? I'm actually using the angle I got from the back. Very good question. So does that kind of answer your question? Kind of? Yeah.
Maybe if I do it, I'll understand.
Of course. But yeah, just simply think that the back is a nice full round shape and the front is not a round shape. So we're going to keep this angle and our finger angle here because we want this to continue to the front. Make sense? Okay. All right, let's go ahead. And I want you guys to pay attention when I'm doing this, that I'm pivoting on my knuckles, okay? So this is, right, this may happen to you guys, right? What's going to get in the way? The shoulder. So all you need to do is kind of just turn the head ever so slightly so that you can open yourself up and really place your knuckles down, right? So when we cut hair and we're using, our finger is our pointer for this other side, and our knuckle is our pivoting point for this side. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions so far? So again, see, I'm going to choose, I'm going to flatten, kind of use the spine, flatten, make sure I have the right angle, and boom. Okay, and if you want to work small, I would go from the bottom because we surely have the bottom where we're starting to open up our A, so we're starting to go up, right? Okay, so heel, toe, heel, it's out, cut, heel, toe. Okay, so here's we start pivoting out, right? And do you see my finger angle? Do you see that the knuckle is pointing at the nape corner? I don't want to lose that. Don't mistake this, guys. Well, last time I taught, I didn't point this out. But yes, do you see the direction of my hair? If I laid that razor, where is it pointing? At that nape corner. Okay? Don't lose that. If you elevate this, what's going to happen? You lose your length. So this first critical section for the pivot over the occipital to the pivot of the nape corner is crucial. Make sure you take your time, right? Tony is going to be going step by step with you. So no worries there. Okay. Right, here's the next one. right? I do try to keep my slices on a diagonal that is closer to vertical. That is much more safe than if I do a horizontal slice to the front. You understand? I can control my length more vertically than I can horizontally because we're playing with elevation and your habits will come into play and you're going to want to elevate when you do a little bit more horizontal. And what happens at that point? You lose your weight as well. You do graduate, but less control. Okay? All right, so coming in again. Okay, so again, look, what as I'm pivoting around, I do kind of want to move a slight bit as I'm pivoting around. Does that make sense? But what's going to happen? What's in my way again? So I can just turn her just ever so slightly. Okay, I'm going to again, let me check. Okay, use again, comb. Is my knuckle, where's my knuckle pointed? Into there. Okay, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe. And now pivoting out. Heel toe. See, if you guys saw this, she had more density on top. And as I'm coming through, it takes me a little bit longer. But don't rush yourself. Don't just try to like push that hair in the razor and cut it. You have to take your time to create the texture. So you have to heel toe, heel toe, heel toe. Always keep your rhythm, no matter the hair that you're cutting. Okay? Any questions so far? 0. Okay. I'm that good? Okay. What will happen eventually is your line, you'll start to see it curve. Don't follow that, right? You have to create the line. Does that make sense? Because you'll start to lose. There's not enough hair here, right? You'll lose that. So you have to create that as it shadows over this ear. Does that make sense? So when you look at this, I really want you guys to remember this. Because do you see my guide? It's right there. But you see how it's falling? The guide underneath is starting to dive up. Don't follow that. Follow the line. Okay? So this is what I mean. You saw that the section is a little bit thicker. Took me a couple more swipes. But there. So you see that line? I keep the line. Look at the previous line. If I followed that, I would lose it. And here, let's do a real quick check, right? Am I losing my length? No. Okay. Again. Okay, this is where your combing comes into play because it's weird, right? I have to comb this way, but I have to comb it and kind of pivot it around into where my hand is because I want to have control. And again, line this up. Look, where is my knuckle pointing? Into that nape corner. Okay, this is kind of thick, so I'm going to go heel toe. It doesn't take it off. Heel toe. There you go. Okay. All right, I'm just going to go koi speed now. I would say around the cowlick, don't put too much tension. You do want control, but don't put too much tension because if you force that cowlick, what's going to happen? It's going to spring, right? And if anything, you can kind of leave the top a little bit longer because again, we're going to design, right? We're going to shape depending on how the hair falls. And I do like to detail my bobs on the top crown dry because that's where all the spring and the action of your giddy happens, right? And if you do it wet, you kind of miss that point and then you might regret it once you dry your hair. So I kind of really do the detail for the crown last. Remember now, I told you guys too, you guys have learned this. Even if I kind of release, it's okay if I'm cutting kind of blunt. It's kind of okay because I have the clip, but because it's razor, I need tension, right? So I can't. Does that make sense? Again, what I teach you guys will mix and match and combine different things and create things. And I hope when you guys create something crazily magical, please let me know and we can share it with the world.
So like how your like fingers, you know, like when you cut, you always tell me to like place it like further away from like where you're actually cutting.
Mm.
Are you also doing that with like your razor too?
Yes. Just a slight bit, you see? Because I need to fit the razor in, right? And that's why I say straight razor is just bullshit. Like, I don't give a shit. You want to look cool online, but really, half the people who are doing straight razor aren't even doing heel to toe. Does that make sense? And then what if she's like, I want it a little shorter? What are you going to do? Slice your knuckles up? It's impossible. So, yeah, I do give a little leeway. Bye, clip. So I'm over directing it back, pointing it at that nape corner, but pivoting around that nape corner ever so slight. Okay, so see, she's in my way again. So I have to just turn her. Okay. Right now, we're cutting around her hairline and her nape corner. So where her head position is not necessarily extremely important. Even her body positioning and all of that really doesn't affect too much because it's like we're cutting hair that's sitting on the neck itself, right? So only the relation of your position or your cutting position to her head will matter. Are we dealing with ears? Do we care about ears? Not really. mm, I don't know. I never really gave too much attention to that, to be honest with you. And you can check my haircuts. I don't have the ear hole in my haircuts, you know? The missing gap. No, I don't have that. Although I am using tension, to be honest with you, I still have a soft pull to it, right? That will come with experience because I don't need to be super strong like this to have control, right? Do you guys see that the razor is cutting? The razor can only cut if I have tension, and I have just the right amount of tension so that I can cut with the razor. Did I keep the weight line? Kept it traveling through. The rest I'll detail when it's dry. So do you see her hair starts kicking already, right? But she just said that's what she likes, this haircut, right? But I, for myself, right? If I want to control that, that's when the koi bob comes into play. Make sense? All right, let's do the other side. How's it going so far, guys? This side is like way easier by far. It will always be easier and more comfortable for you because you're like your natural tendency is gonna want to be to point the finger. Okay. But one thing about this, Tasia, you gotta your razor is kind of gonna get in the way. But does that affect my heel toe? No. Okay, let's check for my two guides. My guide beneath and my guide underneath. Okay, got two guides. Okay. On my first section over the crossover, I do want to check, right? I don't want to continue anything bad. And it looks good to me. I just need to see that. This is where I'm saying you can find cross check. And in my opinion, I really wouldn't cut things cross check, because why would you want to cut something horizontal like this when it drops? What's going to happen? You ruined all that softness you created. Okay? When you cross check, you are investigating. So you're just finding it. So you see that? Right? And I'm like, why is it like that? And watch when I pull reverse, right? Because for example, when you're trying to find something and you come through, do you see how when I'm cross-checking this way, look how linear it is? Because my travel, right, and my pivoting was on point. But when I came over to this side, there was that little funkness right there. So again, I have to be like investigating, right? Okay, that's weird. Why is it that there's a little bump here, right? Then when I see this, then I isolate that piece, right, around it. I need to see why it's doing that. And then I pull it and boom, there it is. Does that make sense? Okay. I do want to tell you guys to watch this side, because your tendency is gonna be to flatten your hand out, right? So you're gonna want to do this. But really, where am I pointing? Right? Okay. Nape corner again. Hey, there you go. Now we're on point. Let's do this. This is what I'm saying. See? It's a little hard. And if not, now that opens up, right? How much experience do you guys have with razor cutting? No experience? Ish. Okay. Does this make you excited to cut hair?
I mean, I feel like I understand it better now.
Nice. Isn't that the crazy part? Like, once you like understand something, you can't forget it, right? Like, it just becomes easy after that. But for the razor, what would you use your razor for before?
Like when I was a scene kid.
Oh yeah? You
Yeah,
want like
like just
texture?
like super texture, but like intentionally uneven. Or
Oh.
like yeah, because it's like supposed to be like just more like intentionally like messy.
Mm. I'm gonna cross check. Balance. This side is getting longer on the top. Okay. There it is. You see it's getting longer. I had to really find it. I want to correct it before we get over the ear, because then that could create more problems for me later. Again, one more time. What do I do? Point it at that nape. Make sure the elevation stays the same. It's kind of like exercise, right? We worked, we worked out, we made sure that we have the right finger angle in relation to the head, or relation to the person, really. right? And then now we're isolating our finger to keep pointing it at that nape. Yeah, once you guys get used to it, like the razor is so freeing. And that's why I mean, like, your guide hand is so crucial in this, right? Because without the control, I mean, when you have control, then the razor just becomes like a pen, right? It's just drawing it away. Okay. Are we able to keep that length? Keeps going. We're almost over the ear already, right? I have maybe 2 sections before I completely am finished with the perimeter, right? I'm always gonna kind of really look at that. Take your time. Same with the other side too, right? Am I gonna follow the guide underneath because you see it starts to fall, right? That's because of the density jump, but it's not. I have to follow the line, right? And my finger angle. Okay. And always if something kind of falls out, if you don't check that, then you might leave that and might be wrong. Okay. This is the final slice. Actually, we've already finished her length, right? I'm gonna push her head just a little bit so I can have some room just right there. Okay. Always make sure your comb is clean. Okay. There you go. Again, am I correct? Pointing right at that nape. Okay. On this side, I've noticed here's something for you guys. Do you notice that I'm going from the top down? Because it sets up my angle correctly, if that makes any sense. If I went from the bottom up, I might follow that diving curvature, right? So I do go from the top down because you see that? You see how the guide, if I followed it from the bottom, I would lose the length and I would create really strong heaviness. Okay? Last 2 sections. Take this. You see what I mean? Okay. So I have to see the line. Right? There's my guide. There's my line, right? Come in and make sure I'm pointing into that nape. But you see my stroke as well? To me, there's no point. Like, you defeat the purpose of a razor if your strokes are really shallow. So you see, I'm really like creating that, yeah? Sorry, Aaron, are you so relaxed? I love it. You just wake up with a beautiful haircut, yeah? Yeah, yeah. Like, am I going to work today? My goodness. Oh boy. Mama duties.
Yeah. Okay, let's see, you're all set. You have to work on your hair today.
Here it is. Now I'm gonna dry and finish this dry. So here we are, we finished everything. You guys can kind of see the shape. Now we can clean this up very easily. But we're gonna finish this crown, right? What can we do? And I'm gonna do a quick example. Let's do what we did yesterday with the koi bob, right? And I do want to kind of go out because you see how that just gradually happens? If we lift it straight up, look at the shape and the movement of the hair. So if we just went with that and accentuated that, then what will we get? We get a little bit of heaviness right here. That's that little bit of bevel, right? Now, another example, I'm just going to kind of do 2 ways. And I'm going to tilt it in for you guys. And I'll show you what is my preference. And this is on your detail work. So it's your preference on what you like, right? So here it is. I'm going to continue that line. Right? So that's what it would look like if we combined the koi bob crown with a graduated bob. Okay? But in the drawing, if I wanted to kind of come in and really start to cut, right? And here's what I would suggest. Do not treat it like a layer where you're coming in and you're completely just cutting it off, because what would happen is you would really, you see how much of a jump that is? It's not going to be a fluid flow. So really, maybe I'll have to draw this back again and maybe make the angle more this way, okay? But I really would suggest you take your time with it, because we're really starting to shape hair, right? So maybe I'll pull it up and you see my finger angle slightly in. Then I can raise it and soften. Make sense? Any questions? Yeah, I'm gonna come around. I'm just gonna be finishing the crown on myself. I do want you guys to start, so let's hand it over to Tony for now. Okay?
Okay, ready? Okay, so hair section from side to side, right? Center part all the way on the back. And the first thing we're going to section up is the nape. It's really, as much as we're looking at each section of the head on that drawing, you really can't do any more than this with this haircut unless break it all down piece by piece. But the reason why that's so fluid is because you're working with all the hair at the same time. So when you get to these sections where you have a lot of hair in your hand, you can drop some of it as you're working with it and recomb to grab some more. Okay. So the first section is going to be right in the nape, and I sectioned it right to the corner of the nape. So I understand that this is my stopping point, and this is the area that we're going to pivot the rest of the haircut from, right? Okay. So first section, center section, right in the nape, to determine our length and our guide.
I haven't seen Sophia in a long time. Is she coming in for a cut or she's growing it out?
Been kind of growing out.
Ah, that's right, that's right.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with that.
Aaron, are you pulling your white hairs?
I have not. You know why? Because you made that comment. I was like, what? How do you know? And
Oh,
I
good.
actually didn't know, so I didn't.
Yeah, because it's growing.
And I have this short
Good job. Yeah, you don't want that. Just because it's like right there, that's why. Yeah, that's the hard part.
Heel to toe, and we're cutting from fingertip to level. It's always going to be like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I swear, I really wish I had a smartphone back in the day, because I had a client. Did I tell you that?
So this is how
Yeah.
we're going to be on this side.
Someone kept pulling their white hair, and they had a mullet of white hair, like literally a porcupine, because they pulled so much, it all grew back, and we couldn't beat it. It was literally like all, like literally, I'm not, Hellraiser. It was like Hellraiser. No joke. It was crazy. Yeah.
Is that what happens when you do that?
Yeah.
Finger in position. I'm going to start.
Well, you don't have to move because it's all right here.
Yeah.
See my fingers are turning as I'm going to continue to hold the tension on that.
Are you like kind of holding your knuckles down as you're doing it?
Yeah, Corey, did you talk about that?
Yeah, we remember the hand grip, so that's called fanning, yeah.
Actually, so the reason why you do this is because remember that space here? When you get to that point, when you bend your knuckle, it continues to hold the grip. And you need to be able to do that with the hair. So we started the section here and brought it down. I'm going to recomb to make sure that I'm in line. I have a little point here. So right-handed people and left-handed people are going to continue to move to the left first with your finger and holding it. So if you're right-handed.
Sorry, real quick. Sorry to interrupt, Tony. My final star check, right? If we think about this haircut, where should we direct our final check? Here, right? Because shorter to longer. So we do the starfish check, and don't be scared and do not cut this off. This is so that you can even out both sides, no matter where this person parts. Pull this back. And do you see that? Because we're one-sided cutting, right? So instead of that, what I would tell you is just to soften it and bring a blending piece so that it is still a triangle, but so that you have pieces no matter what she does. Does that make sense? Okay? Yeah, so that's it. That's my final check. I'm gonna clean up. You guys know how it is to clean up, so that's it.